Thank you, Kathy. You need to do what applies to you, and the recording experts are the ones who can really save you a lot of time and effort by getting you to the right documents to find out what you need, so you're not, and what would be appropriate for you. There are many variations.
The 928 documentation is on the Minnesota Assembly website, or?
Well, I know it's on the CASA website, and they have been updated. That's a good question. Jeanette, are you able to talk? I see you've got you have audio again. Can you hear me, Jeanette?
Maybe, Jeanette, can you type something in the chat letting us know that you hear
us?
We can see the chat if you wanted to communicate that way if your audio isn't working. I yield. Somebody just came on. Oh, there's Scott. Now Scott has no audio. No.
Hello?
Yeah, hi, Scott. You're here.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Scott, I just left Lenny from our education outreach meeting. I showed her how to get on to the Q&A. She doesn't have FCC in order to just click on the link and get in, so she does it by phone. And so she was going to come over here, but I don't see her. So do you have her number? You could maybe check to see if she's getting on or not?
I can. I'm on my phone right now, but maybe I can do this. I don't know. I'm not able to get on my computer, which is oddball.
Huh.
Oop, maybe I will now.
I sent a chat to Jeanette, but she isn't answering in the chat. I don't know what's going on there.
Okay, I'll send her something.
Say hello. Wait a minute. She did say hello. So she's on the chat. Doc, can you see chat?
Oh, Michael's here. Hi, Michael.
Hi, is that Scott?
Yeah.
Hi, I thought I'd call in. You sent me the link. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Have you introduced yourself?
Not but very little, and the connection was really bad, so I'm not sure anybody heard me, but I'm Michael
You're loud
Fry.
and clear now.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead and do it again. I'm sorry.
My name is Michael Fry. I'm a very newbie, just trying to catch up to speed on all this stuff, and it's rather overwhelming. Thought I'd reach out to someone local to try and, I guess, reassure myself I'm on the right path and maybe prevent some mistakes in correcting my status and hopefully bringing forward my patents on several pieces of land. So.
Thanks, Michael. And if I may, I had a good talk with Michael today, first time cold call, but I don't mind cold calls. Heck, I used to cold call in sales years ago. And but Michael has some property up in Todd County, so we'll be neighbors, sort of. And
yeah, and I got Scott's name because of a filing that you had up in Todd County, and your phone number was listed on the paperwork, so I thought, well, what the heck, shot in the dark.
All right. Small world. That's a very tight-knit, good world you're getting into here. You're going to find oodles of great people. And many people think they've actually been led here or prepared to be here. It's kind of like a mission for me, for one. I think a lot of other people see it that way, too. Well, Mike, Doc, you're running the show tonight, so what next?
Well, Scott, until I can tune all the other computers. Can you hear me?
Very faintly.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. Let me get my phone fired up. You take it till I come on with the phone, please.
Okay. So we know there's big news in the banking world today. We have been discussing that in our education meeting just a half hour ago, 45 minutes ago. But does anyone have any question about that? Well, or any other thing we're running into these days? I yield. Oh. Yeah, go ahead, David.
Yeah,
I was expecting you.
I guess I haven't heard about what happened today, but I see there's an awful lot going on in Europe. I yield.
Oh. Well, what happened today is anybody who had their accounts established, and now this includes the new ones since December 1st, everybody received two deposits, well, at least in the one I saw, was two deposits of $5,000 each of American Federation dollars in their Global Family Trade Bank accounts. So I think that may inspire more people to get accounts, because Anna said the first time it's not going to be the last deposit. Actually, we don't call them deposits for Michael's benefit. We place money in accounts. If you deposit it, you look in the Black's Law Dictionary, it means you give it away. We don't give away money in our trade banks. We place our valuables there, and they stay there. All right, so that's the big news. 10,000 more bucks, American Federation dollars in our banks, in our accounts, and they equal 180 American dollars, U.S. dollars. I'm sorry. You know, the Federal Reserve note stuff. That's kind of cheap. Because the Federation dollars are backed by gold and by the real American government. It's 180 to 1, so it's a substantial amount of money. Any questions? I have a thought for David. This might be quite something to put together, a little approach packet for your business friends. That and the fact that they don't own it. Oh, go ahead. Doc, that's scrambled eggs and onions, sir, with some marbles. I couldn't get a word out of that. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I see someone, Kathy, wants to know what's going on in Europe.
Yeah.
The farmers in Europe are extremely unhappy, and they've basically shut down traffic in Germany. I believe it's spreading into France, some of the other European countries, but the farmers have driven tractors into these towns, and in Berlin alone, I think there was 2,000 tractors. But they're blocking all of the express highways, the entrances, the exits, and they're basically shutting down some of even the rail traffic. But anyway, it's across most of all of Germany, and I believe France, other countries. It has to do with diesel fuel and the cutting of farm subsidies in the European banking mess, whatever that is, but it's quite substantial. And of course, inflation has hurt those farmers as well. So they feel they've been targeted. So they've all come together. I've never seen anything of this magnitude. There's been other protests, but nothing of this magnitude. But there's thousands and thousands of farm tractors just basically stalling traffic and blocking traffic on the autobahns and all the major access to the big cities. I yield.
Thanks, David. Yeah, I think the Netherlands is still doing their stuff too. So hopefully this will spread to other countries. It'll be too much for the corporations to survive, and they'll relent. But you know, wishes are like dewdrops; they can fall anytime. Anyway, are you? Anyone else? Well, I'm very inspired about what's going on in Europe and various protests. It can't be enough. It can't be too soon. And let's be grateful for all the people who are rising up anywhere, waking up, rising up, doing things, getting off their couches. Anna says, this kind of stuff is accelerating. I just hope it doesn't go violent and kinetic like big time. So I keep positive and all that stuff and stay the course. Let's see. Jeanette, do you have audio yet? I guess not.
Yeah, this is Kathy again. I don't know why Jeanette is unable to speak. If it does show she has it, but it's on mute. So
yeah.
I don't know.
I wonder if she can't unmute. I have a question here. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just noticing that it keeps bumping everybody on and off. It shows me people coming in and out and in and out and in and out. So there must be kind of a bad connection somewhere. I yield. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah. There was a question Michael had about the land patent. I think. Is there any residual question you had, Mike, about land patent? We have some people right on here that have patented land.
Yeah, I've started the process with Nicole Philippi doing the chain of title research for 2 of my parcels of land. And I guess the next step is maybe to put it in the hands of Ron Gibson to create the, what did you call it, the sandwich?
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if anyone else has completed that process, and how did it go for you? Were the counties resistant to it, and did it go through?
I think Jeanette was able to record hers. Kathleen has tried in Pine City. What kind is that? Pine County, whatever. And it hasn't. They've refused her a few times. So we got to take them to task, get our courts involved, perhaps. Can you say something about that, Kathleen?
Yes, this is Kathy. Who is it we're talking to?
Michael Fry.
Michael Fry. Okay, Michael.
Hi.
So you're working with Nicole and gathering your chain of title. I'm sure from that point, I do have Ron Gibson's book, and I did go to a seminar with Ron. Nicole and I did. It's probably been a couple of years now, and in the book, and even Nicole, we worked together creating the sandwich with the chain of title. Once you find the land grant or patent from your parcel, then you have to just create basically a cover page with the exhibit. And then I posted it on our Minnesota Assembly website, as well as in my local paper for 62 days. It's supposed to be 61 days, but I made sure it was extra. And then once you receive that from your editor, there'll be like don't even know what you call it, but it was like a seal that they put on a piece of paper along with the notice in the public paper. And then that is the whole sandwich that you put together and take to your county to get recorded. And then once you have that, I believe, then you request certified copies of that recording. And then you have what you need to prove that it's all been done. And then that is something that you would post for yourself on your own LRO website. There's a spot in there for that to go. So I don't know how much you've worked with Nicole or where you're at in the process. And what county are you on?
We're in Todd County. Yep.
Okay.
And I think she's completed her chain of title research on both properties. And I guess I don't know what the next step is. You just described it, but I'm not sure I caught it all. I think I ordered Ron Gibson's book, but I think I might just pay him to help me do it the right way without mistakes.
I do believe, I remember Nicole kind of sent me out an example of an exhibits page. You can also go on our website, the Minnesota Assembly website, and you can see in public notices, there's other people's land patents in there, and you can kind of gather, how they've gone about it to create an exhibits page. I was confused at that at first too, but Nicole did walk me through to make that exhibits page. And that's only needed once you're ready to go record it on your county. To the Sandwich, the chain of title, going back to the grant of the patent, is what you need to have. You can post it on the Minnesota Assembly website or publish it, I guess is what they say. You publish it there, and then you put the link in your local paper, linking them to that publishing on our website to give the notice to the public for that 62 days.
Mm-hmm.
And then you gather all of that together and then record it on the county.
Does that notice in the local paper need to be in the same county where the land is? Because I live about 2.5 hours from the land.
I did mine online, actually. So that didn't matter. I did publish it in my local paper.
Okay.
I think that probably is the best. I can't answer that for sure.
Okay. So you buy an ad in the paper to run for, say, 62 days.
Exactly. Yep. It cost me like $80.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. I'm trying to think where did you say how far you have your chain of title, so you already are all the way back to your grant or your patent?
Yes, I am.
On both of, you have 2 properties?
2 properties. Yep.
Yeah, I think then you are, then I think the next step, and I would ask Nicole to be sure, but I think your next step then is to actually publish on the land recording or on our Minnesota Assembly webpage.
Okay.
And once it's there, then you go into the paper, a local paper, and like I say, I just did mine online. I typed up what I needed it to say. I'm trying to remember. Nicole has, like a little description of what you should put in there. Your name and what you're doing and how long it's going to run, what it's about, and then once that's in the paper and you watch for it, and then I took I made sure I got the paper and I cut it out in the paper every week to make sure that I had all my days in order, and I kept copies of those.
That's
and
smart.
then once that's done, then you can create that exhibit, or you can get the exhibit page done in between time and then record once you have that sealed, or it's like a, I don't know, they put like a seal of some kind on the actual ad, and then she even notarized it and everything, witnessed to, so that it was all official. Yep. Okay, I yield.
May I? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, go ahead, Doc.
Okay, good. Yeah, some of this is just speculation on my part. However, I would be very concerned about, I know it sounds like, your land patent is a high priority, and that's, reasonable, understandable. However, getting yourself back on land and soil really should, if it were me, it would certainly be my highest priority. Because
yes, sir.
As a U.S. citizen, you can't own anything anyway. Look at House Resolution 62. You own nothing. The government owns everything. You're just the user caretaker. So, someone like Ron Gibson, who's not, as far as I know, a member of any of the assemblies, but there's more than one way to, using Anna's 1779 document to return yourself to land and soil is, I believe, just one of multiple ways. I personally believe I returned to land and soil in about 2008 when I did some paperwork back then, and actually did things even in the 80s or 90s that I believe had some significant movement off of the sea and onto the soil. But Anna's material is by far, in my opinion, the most elegant, the most accurate, the most lawful approach, best thought out, removing you first from the sea back to the land, and that's really everything she's done has been very, very well thought out. And to get too involved in trying to patent land when you don't have the standing to do so is not. It's hard enough even after you have the standing to get them to recognize it or record it or anything else. Going there as a slave citizen, it would be, I believe, a waste of time and money on your part. And
so I have started a multi-pronged approach in parallel, and I have started to correct my status. I was an adopted kid, so it took me a while to get my actual passport or birth certificate and then file for the passport. But I just received the passport actually today, and so I think I'm progressing. But yes, I need to do much more before I file the patent. I agree.
Yeah, I just, I'm not trying to make it difficult for you, but it seems that there is, actually, you can join the Minnesota Assembly, or you can just return to the land and say goodbye, Assembly. I don't want anything to do with you. That's your choice. However, if you want your salvaged lawful rights, your God-given rights, your 10 Amendments guaranteed rights, but that's just a paper guarantee. The rights come from God, and you have to study your hind end off, know what your rights are, know what the other side is trying to do to steal those rights from you and convert you to a chattel property, which they have very successfully done, but done in a fraudulent way, so you have every right to rebut their fraudulent presumptions and restore your lawful standing. And that is, the highest priority. You can't really accomplish anything until that's done. And then I'm just throwing out on the, for your consideration, to make this work and to have your lawful standing meaningful in your lifetime. We need people to get actively involved in the assembly. We've had many pass through, sign up, and then move on. And that's their choice, and we have no right to tell them otherwise. However, unless we get enough people working to restore our government, we won't have a government. And if we don't have a government, our lawful standing is meaningless. So, I just throwing out a little infomercial. Consider getting actively involved.
I get it, and I agree. It's a lot to take in all at once, and it doesn't seem real linear. There's kind of taking information from all sides. I'm trying to find my way in that. You had mentioned 1779. Is that the document number 1779 listed on Canada's website, or is that something else?
So that's 1779. After the shooting had started in the Revolutionary War, and people had to know whose side are you on. I mean, your neighbor could have been, a spy, a Tory. A large percentage of the American colonist population were loyal subjects of King of
England.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure his name, but for some reason it's escaped me. Yeah, they were loyalists. They were Tories. It was a English territorial residence, and that was important. It was important to know where you stood. We were at war, and we had to know who was who. So everyone was required to declare their political status and standing, and that's what the 1779, which they did in 1779. Anna just took that basic document, modified it for modern times, and it's our way to declare and then publish internationally what our choice of political standing is and status is. And over the age of 21, because we still use the old system of 21, because we're restoring the lawful government. We're not creating anything new. We're not being innovative and creative. We're literally restoring what was and has to, again, be restored, and then we can modify it. But to do anything but simple restoration would be a crime, literally, in the current power's eyes. It would be sedition. It would be treason. It would be insurrection, and things that are very serious charges. And as long as we do it correctly, they can't throw that crap at us. At least not with any long-term effect, hopefully. But they're getting desperate, and we just have to be all that more careful to do it right. But I just wanted to throw that little infomercial in about, if for your status, return to soil status as being effective or of a benefit, we do have to have a working government and operating courts and all four pillars standing. And if we don't have that, you're an American, you're back to land and soil, really in name only, because you will not be able to exercise any of those God-given rights. They'll continue to use their brute force to throw their rules at you as if you were subject to them, which once you've done your paperwork, you are not. But that's why we're so desperately trying to get our courts back up, because once we have our courts up, it's what's called ex parte Milligan, which was right after the Civil War. I think 1866 is the date that comes to mind. I could be off by a year or so, but where because the democracy that Lincoln created when we were lawfully a republic, it used Admiralty Maritime British territorial law as the courts, basically what they called the carpetbagger courts. It was agreed that they would step down once we had our lawful courts back in service again. Well, it's been 160 years, and we still don't have our courts up and operational yet. A couple states, I think, are claiming that they do, but just on a shoestring. We need to have a common law-based lawful court in every county in the entire country. And we're a ways away from that. That's what I'm saying. We've got to get a lot more people involved here. But I do have specific questions about your paperwork that we can maybe address. Hopefully, Jeanette can speak. I don't know. Or did you get your audio working yet, Jeanette?
Doc, she hasn't mentioned in the chat here that she cannot. But if there is a question, she could always type an answer in, and I could read it to anybody who needs it. I yield.
Okay, yeah, we could do that. So, but she also there was a comment earlier that she had to leave by 8, I believe. So if we have any questions relative to 928 or 1779 paperwork, this would be the time to ask it. I'll yield for questions. None at this time? Okay. Well, I guess you're off the hook, Jeanette. But thank you so much for coming. We sure like to. I sure breathe a sigh of relief when I see your name pop up on the list of participants, because a lot of those questions on the paperwork I just can't answer, or I can only guess at. So I do thank you for your diligence and being here. Anybody else have something to contribute, questions to ask, or observations? Okay, well, until we do, as soon as somebody comes up with something, go ahead and say so. In the meantime, this is a Q&A and kind of which originally started out as me giving basic lectures, describing what the difference is between a republic and a democracy, and how, going through Anna's charts, I'll just comment because we do have a couple people who could probably use this information. The best place to go is Anna's website, AnnaVonReitz.com. Scroll all the way to the bottom to read documents, and work your way up instead of starting at the top and working down, as I mentioned before. One of the recent documents that Anna just put out in the last day or so she really strongly advised people not to waste their time reading documents from earlier. Actually, I love those documents because she's speaking to an audience that has no clue about what she's talking about, and she really does give very simple and concise explanations of what she's doing, why we're doing what we're doing, how the different jurisdictions operate, and it really has all kinds of basic information that you really have to know if you want to be sovereign without subjects. If you want to literally walk and experience being a lawful American, you have to know those things, or you will lose that standing very quickly to the lawyers and judges and politicians that are, literally here to strip you of all of your rights and can keep you in the corporate feudal system that has been created for us. So, yeah, study, and actually some of the old stuff that describes how the Vatican, created all capital names, corporations, and their claim of dating all the way back to 1302 of the Pope being the ruler of the world on as the representative of God on earth, and who created it, so therefore he's the single one who has to rule it all. And they still seem to believe that that's factual, and the early documents will make it easier to understand what the situation we're dealing with today is, and how we can stand and say, no, I'm not a part of that. That's something that I've been indoctrinated to my entire life, but I now see the fraud that it is, and will no longer participate. Thank you. And know what you're talking about, because if you don't know what you're talking about, they will take your sovereignty away from you very quickly. I know I've actually, before I was ready to, I did a lot of foolish things years ago, challenging government, ending up in court, saying I've, filed, it was UCC 108, before, or 20, before 1-208 without prejudice. And I cockily told the judge, that was what I was standing under. And he said, do you have a dollar bill, any Federal Reserve notes in your pocket? Yeah, I've got Federal Reserve notes. Well, then you're participating. So you're, that. I mean, it just made up a bunch of crap right on the spot, snowed me under. And, I didn't know how to respond. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. You really have to know what you're doing. I'm not saying that, you have to become absolute top-notch expert just to retain all your, God-given rights. But you really have to know what the sham is, and how it's how they have perpetrated it, and how you are not in any way, shape, or form subject to it. And so talking about some of the earlier documents, Anna gives very specific in some cases, very specific processes, either commercial processes to offset debt with a bill, a true bill, and the accepted for value process, which I used and used successfully. I know it's valid, or it was valid, but it was only valid to a corporation that still existed. Now the Federal Reserve and the International Monetary Funds, well, the Federal Reserve no longer exists. They've quit printing bills, which is going to be an interesting outcome here down the road when, if 2017 is the last bill they printed. Of course, Obama did spread printing presses all over the world, is what I've heard. I don't know the details on that, but he allowed for unbelievable counterfeiting of the Federal Reserve note. And he may have done that in anticipation of the Federal Reserve's bankrupting, and which meant they'd quit printing Federal Reserve notes. The big push, of course, is to get us all totally on plastic so they can record every stick of gum you buy. So there's an absolute electronic record of every penny you earn, every penny you spend, so that they can completely control you. And, of course, that happened under Obama's administration, so he was well aware of that. He may have, in anticipation of the bankruptcy, decided to print up a little extra reserve of paper to float around. But, you won't see a bill, a dollar bill, a 20, any denomination. You won't see anything printed with a date after 2017. And I guess, my guess is that, and this is just speculation, that they're going to let that Federal Reserve note just become a real shortage, as they're pulled back off out of circulation. Pretty soon there won't be many floating around anymore. It will be forced, they believe, that we'd be forced into using their plastic. Well, thank God Anna had foresight and chartered a bank. We'll have our own bank. We don't need your nonsense anymore. We don't need your... In fact, one of her very last articles here was lending Uncle Eddie more money, which is basically anytime you use a Federal Reserve note, you're actually allowing the government to run up their national debt, which they will dump onto the U.S. citizens, but they will not dump them onto the Americans. So we have to get.
May I
go ahead,
Doc?
Yeah.
I think we've had a little bit of confusion in who Jeanette. Jeanette on here is not the Jeanette we're thinking. I'm not sure of the Jeanette's last name, but it's not.
Oh.
That's with us. It's somebody new, and I see two people, Jeanette and Andy. And there is a question now that Jeanette does have that I'd like to be able to address, Doc. She says that she's learning now, and she did have a question about having the right and the standing based on this, but what right as Social Security would that be denied? So to answer you, Jeanette, we have one of our recorders, or she's a recording secretary for the Assembly. Her name is also Jeanette, and her last name is Stothrup. That's who we thought was on here with us. So we'll let Doc address the question that you're asking right now, and maybe we can think about. We probably need to go back to some of our beginning presentations for some of the newer people that are coming on. So I yield.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Yeah, and I apologize to Jeanette. I thought the Jeanette, the recorder, does come on this website quite often. Sometimes if I know new people are going to be coming on with questions about doing their paperwork, I'll call her up and ask her to come, or sometimes she just shows up on her own, and she can answer the questions with a lot more specificity than I can. So when I saw Jeanette, I thought, oh, great. But your question. Well, first of all, Social Security is they call it a benefit, but actually you paid for it. And even if you do collect on it, you're not going to be getting everything that you deserve anyway. Their system, I don't know. Scott, you could probably answer this better, but you have every right. Think of it this way. If you buy car insurance and you get in a wreck and your car is wrecked, whether it's totaled or just damaged, you're going to hopefully get a check from the insurance company to either repair the damage or replace the car. And when you get that check, are you getting a benefit that obligates you to that company in some way? No, you're not. You're just basically, as Anna calls it, insurance is a casino. It's a gamble. You're gambling that you're going to have more expense than you're going to be paying in as premiums, and the insurance company is gambling that they're going to collect more premiums than they're going to put out in the way of payments, and it's not a benefit. It's nothing but you won the bet. They owe it to you. You've paid for it. You've earned it. It's a contract, and that's basically what Social Security is. If you've paid into it, you have an interest in it. They can't say that. They will try to call it a benefit, because by accepting benefits, you are accepting the authority of the government. And they will try to use the word benefit describing Social Security, but it's not. And a lot of people in the assembly are collecting Social Security.
Doc, she's asking a little more direct. She says she means, would one be denied, other denied as SS access to public places benefit? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Can you elaborate some more, Jeanette? Can you read in the chat there, Doc?
I can, yeah. Yeah, that's why I'm using the phone, and I keep the computer on mute so it doesn't feedback. So I can see what the chat says and see who's on. Because my darn computer just doesn't work. It works perfectly, and then for no reason at all, it quits working. Let's see. Denied Social Security access to public places. Are you talking about a discount at Perkins? I'm kidding. I don't know. You'll have to explain it.
Okay, she did comment here again.
Yeah.
I understand. My question is, would one be denied other public benefits? You mean like health insurance, things like that?
Well, yeah. Anytime you take.
That's what she means. Like public assistance of some kind, and that is.
Yeah. Well, you can still become. You can still be a national, not a citizen, if you are accepting benefits of any kind. Stop. Is that
Yeah.
Okay, knock it off.
All right.
Or go ahead and answer the question about. Okay. Benefits are the way the government looks at it. Obviously it's crazy because every dime they spend is money they've taken from us, pocketed the majority of it, and then, what little is left, they return to us in what they call benefits. So it really isn't very beneficial. We, as a people, would be much better off just keeping the money ourselves and spending it as we saw fit. But under their system, that isn't going to happen. All the more reason why we have to get our own land, soil, government operating again. They are a legitimate group. I mean, what they're doing and their taxation and their benefits and all that is absolutely legitimate to their citizenry. Our criticism of what they're doing is they have gotten their citizenry by fraudulent means, by taking innocent babies 2 weeks old and claiming them as lost and abandoned and all kinds of other presumption and assumptions and absolute blatant lies that they say, if you don't rebut it, it's true. And in their world, in their system, yeah, that's how they operate. But that's not our system. So, when we're talking about their citizenry, we just have to make everybody as aware as we can of what they've done to us, and then let the people make their own decision. Do they want to stay in that system? It has benefits. Benefits like paying any kind of fine that any judge wants to put on you for storing a car in your backyard that was in excess of what the ordinance said, or slipping through a stop sign when there's no oncoming traffic and no reason to stop other than there's either a light or a piece of metal there. Just that kind of way. That's how they make their money. That's why those laws exist. That's why we have more people in prison than any other nation in the world per capita, because it's so profitable, and they're reaping those profits. So,
may I?
Yeah, go ahead. I was just saying, I'm warning against accepting benefits if you have any other option. But you can, that won't preclude you from going back to the land, but just it'll limit your choices as to your status. I yield. Go ahead, Scott, please.
Thanks. Thanks, Doc. Hi, Jeanette. This is Scott. Jeanette is a friend of mine. I had talked to her about this along with other friends. Anyway, I'm glad you can drop by, Jeanette. I want to clarify the benefits thing a little bit. Anything that you have paid into through payroll deductions is not a benefit. It's due to you. This would include several things. Social Security, of course, Medicare, workman's comp, unemployment insurance, disability insurance. These are all things that you paid premiums on, and even in retirement you continue to pay premiums on your Medicare, of course. So these are all available to you. when it rolls over into benefits, as Doc said, it does put some dependence upon you. If the preponderance of the benefits to anybody is really from the government, like things that you didn't pay for, but they do out of the goodness of their hearts, then they will claim that ownership and authority over you more strongly. But you can always, even if you do receive benefits from government, you can declare yourself as an American. And this does not prevent you from participating in the new Blue Dot banking system, the global family banking system, and several other benefits. But it does prevent you from being, for instance, choosing to be a citizen and really serve in the reconstruction of our lawful government and courts and putting these people back in their tiny little boxes where they belong. And that's what we're all very interested in these days. However, the more Americans, the better. Even as an American, but not being able to take on the extra responsibilities of a citizen, any American can participate in assembly work. They may not have, they can't chair an assembly or take an office in assembly because they have slightly divided loyalties due to benefits. That's all it is. Our founders were extremely careful about setting up a system where there would never be a conflict of interest clouding the judgment of any public servant or public office holder. That's it. I yield.
Thanks, Scott. Jeanette, it just occurred to me, I see your red mute button is on in the bottom left-hand corner of the little box, where your icon and name is. If you click on that, it should turn white, and you should be able to speak. Have you tried that? You just put the cursor on that, either on the red icon of a microphone in the bottom left corner of the box where your name is, or way at the bottom left corner of your screen, there's one that should say mute. And if you can click on either one of those, and that should get you operational. Anyway, do we have any other comments, questions, further explanations?
May I?
Please, Scott.
Yeah, there's a question in there I wanted to address specifically. It says, would they use being a national, the status of being a national, to deprive you of other rights? I believe that answer is no. I haven't been aware of any rights which we're deprived of, except as they always try to buffalo us into accepting being responsible for these fictions they've created. And they do that very skillfully in the courts, like Doc had talked about earlier. But if you learn who you are and how to talk and what not to respond to, what to respond to, it's very difficult for them. Plus, we stay out of their courts. We don't go about running through stop signs just to test the waters and poke the bear. No way. We keep straight and narrow and stay out of their courts at all costs because that's their territory. We don't even want to go there. And we can certainly train people quickly on how not to ever go in their courts with impunity. I yield.
Thanks, Scott. Yes, yeah, on that, one of the main things you have to keep in mind, like Anna has given some very explicit how to stay out of their court instructions, how to return their summonses and things and not be held in contempt of the court because you did it properly. You did it. They operate in commerce. They are the commercial courts that are operating in every county in this country are operating in commerce. They're dealing with two-dimensional entities, fictions, corporations. Even your all-capital name on your driver's license is a two-dimensional, non-existing concept. And that's all that those courts can deal in, is fraud and fiction. So as a living man, you can, and Anna's given very explicit. You know, there a lot of that is in her documents, which if you go to the there's two different search mechanisms. You know, one right at the very top by her picture that says search, and then one underneath that actually gives you the document number of the document that applies. And in that one you can type, you know, well, you just have to use it to see how it works. It's really very simple, very, very simple. They both are. And they'll both quickly get you to the kind of information you're looking for. But you have to have the right standing in order to do any of that stuff. And I would admonish anyone to stay the hell out of commercial process. I've used it. I've done it. Anna did it, a lot of it, in fact. But that's not where we're at now. That's not, in large part, because a lot of those corporations are no longer operational that we could do the commercial processes against. So just study what she's saying is the most efficient way to do things. I'm not saying she has all the answers, and things are changing constantly, not because she was wrong and is coming up with a better idea. Sometimes she's right but comes up with an even better idea, and sometimes the circumstances change, like the bankruptcies of the corporations, Federal Reserve and IMF and things, which completely change who we're dealing with. You know, right now, Biden is the president of a corporation called the White House Corporation, I think, something like that. Scott, you could probably correct me on that, but you know, he's not the president of America. And in fact, there hasn't been a president in America probably since James Polk, maybe Buchanan, but certainly Lincoln wasn't, and none since have been, and that includes Trump. He's a British territorial, operative at best. He had, and I don't think he totally comprehends what he's doing, or what we're talking about, and why that even is the case. But if his status isn't corrected, and I have no evidence that it is, he's a Tory. So, and he's making waves, but he's still in their system. Although he's learned wonderful processes. Like he was bragging that what's her name, Clinton, when they were both candidates before he got elected, that she was an idiot because she was paying taxes, and he was head and shoulders above her in intellect and everything else because he wasn't, which was an interesting thing to say publicly, to the masses anyway. So he's obviously got either really good commercial processes that allowed him to do that, and that can be. I've known people who made pretty good amounts of money, and like one guy told me he made $1 million, and this is 40 years ago, and he paid his accountant $30,000 and didn't have to pay a penny in taxes. So $30,000 is pretty reasonable outlay when you can pocket $1 million. he wasn't an American. He hadn't returned to land and soil. He was still a U.S. citizen, but knew how to play the game, I guess. And that's an option for anybody who wants to do that. Well, those of us who've chosen to go the route of returning to land and soil, we are changing our lifestyles in large part from being a dependent of a nanny state, to being self-sufficient. Excuse me, I need just a second here. Say goodnight. I like you a little bit sometimes. Grab that plate. Okay, sorry, I had some business to tend to here. My granddaughter needed a hug tonight. With that, I'll yield to somebody else. How about you, Dave? You must have something to say about that.
Within the last week, I have a family member on a Crow Wing County Township Board, and within the last couple of weeks, a speaker came out of Morrison County, and this speaker is educating township boards on the topic of common law. So there is some new awakening at the township levels. I don't know a lot of the details of what they shared, but I heard that within the last week or so. I yield.
Gee, thanks, Dave. That is great to hear. That's great. I guess most of the clerks and office workers and municipal employees have absolutely no clue of what the difference is between a democracy and a republic, and what they're doing. They just are taught, here's the book, follow the book, and everything will be fine. Your job will be secure. Don't think. They're not told, I don't think, directly, but I'm sure at times even told, don't think. Follow the book. Even if the book doesn't seem to apply, if you follow the book, you'll be okay. If you try to improvise and create a solution for someone, who's coming to your office, and even if you are right, you can get in a lot of trouble. Not unlike the drug industry and the licensed medical practitioners. They set a rule whereby the doctors have to follow protocol. They can lose their licenses if they don't abide by the wisdom of the current practices, protocols, which a few hundred years ago, or not even all that long ago, was bleeding people like they did to Washington and killed them. It's the powers that be aren't right, but they are insistent that you have to do exactly what they say. I have no reason to believe that they finally arrived and everything they're recommending is right. In fact, I have real good evidence that is anything but the case. So if a medical doctor has any reason to believe that you might, either because you have high blood pressure, or you maybe have high blood sugar, or you have any potential cardiovascular issues, if he wants to keep his license, he has to offer you a statin drug. Now, what's a statin drug? A statin drug is a chemical liver-destroying process whereby high cholesterol is not the result of eating bacon, because people who go on the high protein, very, very low carbohydrate diets, triple, quadruple or more their cholesterol intake, and yet their blood cholesterols plummet. I've seen it. I've seen the before and afters when people went on those diets. So the whole lie about eating cholesterol, eating eggs, drinking whole milk, butter, margarine. You don't hear the margarine ads anymore as protecting your heart, because it's a lie and they can't say it. It's been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's a lie, so they've been told they can't say that anymore. All the nonsense we've listened to for the last 70 years about cholesterol, which was only to sell margarine and corn oil, was a lie, a blatant lie. And anyway, so the medical doctor is faced with giving you a drug which, according to their own disclaimer that they had to put on it up until about 2007, it's the disclaimer, just like on a cigarette pack, a little black box with a disclaimer in it. Every advertisement for statin drugs, every television ad, every magazine ad, anything that was an ad for a statin drug had to have this warning, like the cigarette pack warning, that stated, let's say if it was Lipitor. Lipitor has not been shown to reduce the incidence of heart attack or stroke, and may cause irreversible liver damage and occasionally death. That's what that warning said. It does absolutely nothing to increase your longevity. It does nothing to prevent stroke. It does nothing to prevent heart attack, which is true because raw cholesterol levels and heart attack and stroke have absolutely no correlation whatsoever statistically. So just lowering your cholesterol on paper is meaningless, but doing it by chemically, literally destroying your liver, possibly enough to cause permanent liver damage. And the liver is a very, it's an organ that can heal itself, replicate. I mean, you can get a liver transplant of half of.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit.
We lost you for a minute there, Doc. Go ahead, try again. We can't hear anything if you're saying anything, Doc.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yep.
My phone.
We can. That's good.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
How about now? Sorry, I'm having all kinds of electronic issues here tonight. Anyway, as I was saying, so the stuff does not do any good for you. It can cause irreversible health injury and also muscle pain. I've seen a lot of cases over the years where people had really painful, achy muscles, very localized spots of muscle that were in pain, but it was no injury. It was just due to the fact that in addition to cholesterol-producing capabilities of the liver, some of the other enzyme production was damaged, and therefore it was affecting their muscles. And the sad thing is, it takes about 4 months for the liver to recover enough for the muscle pain to go when they get that. But the point, so all of this that I've led up to here is to make the point that if you're a medical doctor and you don't prescribe something that can cause severe pain, illness, and death, while doing absolutely nothing to improve someone's health, you can lose your license. If, on the other hand, you prescribe that drug and it kills the patient, you're in the clear. I mean, that is how twisted this system has become. So when we're talking about things like benefits or anything else, you got to take it from the perspective of we're dealing with a heartless feudal corporate system that is so cold it not only encourages but demands that people be put at huge risk. And, of course, the recent COVID fraud that's still being pushed. I hear advertisements on the radio all the time. COVID's still here, folks. You should get another shot. We're dealing with real psychopaths, and we have to be careful. We just have to absolutely learn everything we can and be as careful as we can to avoid any of their traps, because they do not have your best interest. I don't want to sound to be totally negative, but that is looking at it from the perspective of what they're doing. Look at what we're accomplishing and where we're going to be going when we get enough people and people actively participating to be able to do it. We're going to restore a total lawful government. It's just amazing. It's just wonderful to even think of. I mean, for me, it's all the motivation I need to be as involved as I can be. It can't come fast enough, and it won't be too fast. I mean, I know it's not a good advertising for me to say, well, I've been at this for 45 years or more, and so I'm not expecting any huge change, but it is changing, and for the first time in that 45 years, it's just in the last few years, more has been accomplished than all the years before, because we were doing everything wrong. We're not doing everything right now, but boy, we have straightened, thanks to the guidance of Anna. But, I always say when I mention her as, she's the one who's put together the program, but she openly admits and constantly acknowledges literally hundreds of other people's thousands of hours of research and work that was finally, in the last 20 years, because of the internet and so forth, allowed people to get together and share their information and put together a program that will really work. We weren't wrong 40 years ago. We just didn't know what we were doing, and the judges just kind of smiled when we went in their courts, because they knew we didn't have standing, and they would be able to do anything they wanted to us. They really seemed to enjoy that, arrogantly in some cases, but at any rate. So I'll yield with that and let somebody else say something, either comment or questions. Or, Kathy, you're going to say something?
Any other questions? Jeanette did say she had to leave, and she did thank you for all of your information. She will keep learning, she says.
Well, that's the only way we're going to get out of this mess.
Right.
All the good intentions, all of the, well, I know they're wrong, which is kind of where I was years ago. I knew they were wrong, so I wasn't going to go along with them anymore. But I didn't know what was right. And so, and even though I was studying, and the sad thing is I was studying a lot back then and going to meetings, and most of the stuff we were learning back then was either commercial processes and we didn't know the difference between a commercial process. We didn't know one jurisdiction from the other. We didn't know any of the stuff we know now. So just knowing they're wrong is not going to get you anywhere. You have to know what's right and know what's specifically right for you. And what we've got going here is it's just the acorn at this point. The oak tree still has to grow, but hopefully it'll be a pretty fast-growing oak, but a sturdy one. So, anyone else want to make any closing comments, or if there's questions, we can keep this going as long as you want to. Any motion to adjourn?
May I?
Scott.
Could you describe the 1779 document, what its purpose is, where it's from?
I'll try. During the Revolutionary War, people, your next door neighbor could well have been an enemy, a Tory. No one knew who was who. So the 1779, and that's why it's called the 1779. In 79, it would have been Continental Congress at that point. No, it wouldn't have. That was 81. It was pre-Continental Congress. It would have been just under the Federation. Required everyone to acknowledge their status, their political status, whether they were American, still retaining their old, if they were immigrants, their old countries' citizenships. You had to define who you were, and that, of course, was important during a war. Well, it's important now for us to use that same process to establish ourselves as living on land and soil, as not U.S. citizens, not citizens of the United States, but as Americans returning back home to the jurisdiction we were born to, our birthright status, and we need to do that. You have to have two witnesses, and that's biblical, but that has been adopted by the two witness is in our court system. It's just part of our customs, our common law at this point. Who can identify you as who you say you are, and you sign the thing and you are back on the land. That is the only step you have to take to return to the land and soil from the being lost at sea. The 928s and other documents, baby deeds and things like that, are all additional documentation that you can and probably should do to restore your name, your assets, your all of the things that were stolen from you by presumption, you have to now rebut those presumptions and say, no, I am here. I've returned. I am back. With Robinson Crusoe, give me back my stuff. Or in the Hobbit movies, the Three Rings and that, when Bilbo, I think it was, the one that the Hobbit, when he was gone with the dwarves for a few years and then came back home, he came back just in time to see all his furniture being hauled away by the other hobbits from an auction that apparently the local government had done. And he came back, hey, what are you doing? That's my table. This is my stuff. What are you doing? I'm back. And, they do things like that to kind of show us what the rules are. Hollywood is a means of, it's been explained that I agree with. And, back in Dark Ages, you had a post in the town square where where the king would post his edicts and where people could post their notices. Now it's Hollywood is the post. People don't read much anymore. They go to movies. They watch movies. So Hollywood has been assigned basically to inform us as to, and you can look at a lot of the movies. Wizard of Oz is one of the most obvious ones, describing the difference between the democracy and Kansas, the black and white common law, and the colorable democracy. I love Roger Rabbit, who framed Roger Rabbit, to explain how if a living man goes into Toontown, the two-dimensional imaginary cartoon world, he can have a piano dropped on him and he will die. And if you die in Toontown, you're dead. And that is so true. It makes sense to me, at least explains how you go into their two-dimensional world, their corporate entity where your name is in all capitals. You're the Walking Dead, and they have all these movies about Walking Dead and stuff. They're telling us. They are telling us constantly. There was a wonderful teacher, the early 2000s, and actually in the 80s, 90s, but I didn't get onto him till at least the early 2000s, I believe, maybe late 90s. He was from Ohio, Jack Smith. I don't know if any of you ever got to hear Jack, but every Sunday night he did about a 2 or 3 hour program where he didn't have all, he was actually just one of the early researchers that was trying to untangle this web. But he would spend the first 15 or 20 minutes of every Sunday night program discussing the movie he watched that week and converting every bit of it into explaining how in Hollywood, the female is the church. If you know how to interpret what the different actors are and stuff, which I can't. I mean, when he explained it, I said, oh, gee, that makes sense, yeah. But, to try to explain it to someone later, I couldn't do it. I just don't, my brain just doesn't work that way, I guess. But he could take every movie and show how they were telling us how the democracy works and how our society is, how it's actually operating. It was just amazing, even to somebody who could only minimally comprehend what he was saying. But he dealt a lot in commercial processes and common law, and how courts, the difference between a common law court and, which deals in substance and facts, and the military occupation courts that are strictly, you're guilty when you walk in because you're already their chattel property, and if they, the way he described it was an officer is a officer of the court. There's no question about that. I mean, you can see that written, that, all the actors, and they call it literally by Black's Law Dictionary, when we're talking democracy in their world, we use Black's law, dead law. And an officer is a officer of the court, and an officer is a gentleman. An officer cannot lie because they're a gentleman. Whatever they say is automatically the truth. And I did have a judge say to me once, I was challenging a speeding ticket because that cop was just pissed because I was rude, which I oftentimes wised off to him too much. And so he wrote a ticket giving me like a 75-mile-an-hour speeding ticket in a 45 or something like that, which was absolutely impossible, and I was hoping to be able to prove it. But the judge said, I have to take the officer's word for it. In other words, I didn't know what hearsay was, but anything I said would have been hearsay, and she couldn't have used a word that I said. But she had to take the officer's word for it, quote and unquote. It was some years later before I found out why. But an officer is being an officer of the court and a gentleman and cannot lie. Whatever they say, even though they've been given the right or the privilege, I guess, to lie in court, it's perfect. They can lie without being charged with prejudice. Not prejudice, perjury. So because they can't lie, if your first trial is literally on the side of the road. When you're pulled over, when those lights come on and you're pulled over, that cop comes around the side of your car. That is your trial. He's the court. He's the officer of the court. He's judging whether or not you did something wrong, and he has the authority to make that decision. He's not trained in law at all, but he's a policy processor. But if he says you're guilty, you are guilty. And I asked that judge, am I not innocent until proven guilty? And she just smiled and said, oh, yes, you're innocent until proven guilty. She just omitted telling me that I was guilty on the side of the damn road. So, it's when you go to court, when you actually walk through that courtroom door and then past the bar, you're not at your trial, you're at your appeal. And you can't bring any new information into an appeal. Therefore, anything you say can't be used because that's new. That's new evidence. An appeal can only consider the evidence of the original trial, which was on the side of the road. But he would teach things that Smith would teach things like that, which really helped to make sense of why things are so screwed up. Anyway, I guess with that, I'll yield. Anybody else comment, question? Hello?
I got pulled over in Alaska on the side of the road, and it was raining, and the cop was hiding behind, and I took pictures. I printed out the weather report, and when I did go to challenge a speeding ticket, the judge also said that she would have to take the officer of the court would believe him over me. And when I asked the officer, I said, I see on my ticket that you pulled me over using a laser, and I would like to see your license to operate a laser in the state of Alaska. He did not have it. I also said to him that it was raining this day, and I wanted to know if the laser was operated out of the window or through the glass, because that can alter the speed. And before I could get another question out, the judge said to me, Miss Buzzwitz, are you an expertise in this? And I said, no, I am not, but I do know that this should be calibrated after it was last used, and I know that you have to have a license to operate it in the state. And at that time, lasers were very new. And I had pictures of where I was pulled over, and the judge was going to keep all of my evidence. She was going to keep all my pictures. And there was an attorney in the back said, Your Honor, you have to give her evidence back in case she decides to come back here to court. And that attorney did come up to me and said, I will help you. You did a very good job for yourself, and I could get you out of this ticket for the price of your ticket. I said, no, thanks. But it was worth a try. But I lost.
Yeah. Well, you lost before you walked in there.
Yep. The judge said that she was going to take the officer of the court, even though, he should have had to show me his license, and I know he didn't have one.
They have absolutely no right to even speak to us. Why should they follow any other rules?
Right.
It's really, that is one of their primary sources of income, because when they charge you, what, $150?
282. Yeah.
Okay. That wasn't the tip of the iceberg of what they collected. And that judge got a piece of what they got for her retirement fund. And the prosecuting attorney got paid a chunk, not just his salary for working at the court, his regular pay. He also got an additional bonus for, as a pirate, putting a claim on your estate, a chunk of your estate. But they literally go to your all capital name estate that is created by your birth certificate, and second process, but ultimately from your birth certificate. And they literally take, if it's a felony, it's $1 million. If it's Scott can probably give you those numbers better, but it's thousands that they took. They didn't just get 200 some bucks. They got that out of your pocket, but out of your estate, they took many, many, many times that. That's what they're running this whole fraud on, is by pilfering from your estate that you don't even know you have if you're the average American. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
My question is, though, when you do get pulled over now, because I don't have a driver's license now, because mine expired in May, I get pulled over, and they ask to see my ID. Can I just show them that assembly card?
Scott, I need help. Look at Scott. Well,
or show them my passport.
I'm here.
Passport.
Okay, here's our expert on getting stopped.
I was only stopped 5 times in the last 2 years. Not bad. Anyway, but I've been in court 4 or 5 times too. Because I decided to fight it, but I'm done with that stage of my life. I would say if you get stopped, generally we recommend don't pick that to be the battlefield you're going to die on right now. It's more important to grow our assembly, our knowledge, and our wherewithal, and our expertise, and our legs of pillars of our assembly first. But if you happen to be there, if you have a corporate ID, meaning a driver's license, I would show it to them. If you have a passport that's been correctly filled out and properly autographed, you can show that to them. Have you applied for the passport according to the Copper Moonshine Still?
Well, I made out the I didn't write U.S. citizen on any of it or nothing like that, and I signed it the way I think I was supposed to sign it with that code. And by the byline, I think I did everything right, but I hope I did.
So if I was you and you did happen to get stopped, which would only be in the rare occasion that you might accidentally violate one of their silly rules, I would show them the passport. That's your best chance. And because you don't have a license to show them, unless you can prove you're not in commerce, and the guy on the street is not going to be he's not going to be knowledgeable enough to accept any proof, because he's going to have his marching orders, to give you a ticket because you don't have a license. In that case, it's only that you have to prove your status, your American state national status or citizen, and you can do that by mail after that. And the litigation committee is good for helping you with that, because if you do get stopped and they do give you a ticket, now I've gotten, 4, 5, 9, 10 or 11 of those in the last 2.5 years. And I've yet to sign any one of them. Never sign anything. And there's a number of ways to get rid of those.
Yeah, they say don't sign the ticket, right?
Yeah, don't sign it, and then you can return it within 72 hours. Put some verbiage on it. If it comes to that, we can provide you that verbiage. And you want to sit in. And here's the thing: if they ask you to pay a ticket, let's say you don't go to court and they come and try you, even though you're not there, and send you a notice that you can just return it without even opening it. Or you can send them an offer back and say, well, I need the original signed copy so that I can sign so that I can pay an actual bill. They won't have it because they turned it in for the money. And so it may just stop right there. A lot of times they can't go anywhere after that. If you're demanding a signed copy and a true bill for the, for the incident, so-called. So there's lots of little ways you can do, but don't get arrested on the side of the road for this. Just don't do it. Show the passport and say, well, that's all I stand on. And we developed travel kits a couple of years ago. There's quite a bit of stuff in there, but the officers won't even look at it because they need to maintain plausible deniability of your status, which is part of their job as the prosecutor on the side of the road. They should determine your status, but they're all ignorant of that, or they've been trained in ways that don't allow them to recognize your status without even knowing why this training happens. But the way they're trained to deal with you is all kinds of ways to stop us from being able to establish our true identity as Americans, as living people. So it's a tricky business. And the more of these things you learn, the better to generally feel it. But the best policy of all is don't go there. If you can possibly avoid it, don't go there. That's all I have to say. I yield.
Thank you, Scott. That was well stated. Do you have any further questions on that?
No.
Okay. Yeah, Anna has documents that explain how to do a return without creating any liability, for something like, being charged with contempt for not responding. It's called return of process, where you use red ink and write across the envelope that you're neither a U.S. citizen or a stop.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot to mute.
Thank you, Scott. Are you familiar with that process where you have no UCC contract, no officer? Are you familiar with that?
Yep. But I wish I would have known this when I got arrested for not wearing a mask in Sioux Falls.
Yeah. Well, their tyranny is coming to an end. I can't tell you when, but I know it's going to, all governments, and especially tyrannical governments, fall at some point. This one is way past due, and it's going down. But we have to wake our neighbors up so they see what's going on and help us with the process. I see it at this point, sadly, our deaf, dumb, and blind neighbors who are just, watching television and glued to the news and being hypnotized that, America's the greatest country in the world and you're the freest, most, wonderful people in the world, and, just being pumped full of this crap that they can't think, and it's really sad, but they just can't even. You can explain it to them, and you see them, their eyes roll back. It just bounces off their head, or they actually go into a catatonic state for a bit because they're so brainwashed. So we have a lot of work to do, and more than overcoming the, getting the government that needs to be put back in its box, the government that needs to be reconstructed and set up to do that job, we need to wake our neighbors up, including the police and the clerks and the courts and the municipal employees who have no clue, that they just think, well, this is just the way it's supposed to be. This is the only alternative. This is the greatest country in the world, and this is how we do it, so it must be right. So, get out there and, this is the Education Outreach Department, so we're all a little fanatical about trying to get people to wake up, probably more so than some of the other committees, but it really is our long-term solution, and it's how we're going to get from here to there, but we are definitely going to get there. I have absolutely no doubt of it. So.
Yeah, but how do you wake people up that don't want to be woke up?
Well, you do it little at a time, is my theory. You give them one bit of information. Like Dave could speak to that. Do you want to comment, Dave?
May I? What I know and what I've heard for quite some time, the tribal people are really making a major change across this country. They have no hunting license, they have no fishing license, and most of them have no driver's license. We've heard this many, many times. They have a band card, and that band card, if they are taken in, they call their attorney and their attorney, in many cases, I understand, releases them immediately to their courts. And, of course, they basically, in many cases, just release them. So things are changing, only it's not in the local paper. It's not known to the public at large. They keep things under cover as long as they can. But many, many things have already changed. Most of these state agencies do not try to avoid engaging with anybody they know is tribal. I yield.
Well, thank you, Dave. But I was hoping you'd comment about, because you're really good about giving out brochures and talking to people and waking people up. I was hoping you'd comment. The question was, how can we wake people up? I was hoping you'd have a comment, observation on that.
Yeah, what I do, and I think there's many different ways to do it. You know what the townships are up against, and most of the people you know on those township boards. So begin dropping off paperwork for them to start learning on their own. And it's new to most everyone, but many of them are catching on, I suppose, from the internet, like the common law movement that's going on now, I believe, in many counties across the state. That goes back and ties into the corruption of the Association of Townships. And, of course, the townships being overtaken by the counties and the state and the overreach that they're tired of. What I do is basically just drop off paperwork, and, I kind of know what certain people are interested in or what their concerns are, and just tell them to share that paperwork with as many other people as they can. Anything you do to hand out paperwork that helps educate anyone is basically an underpinning of the corruption. And the corruption starts at the local courthouse. So anything that expresses what they've been getting away with for decades, unknowing to the public at large, that information will get back to that county courthouse, will get back to the county deputies and sheriffs. I have also directly noticed the county, and I'm sure that the information I sent ended up on the county attorney's desk, and I sent it all registered mail. So there is an awakening happening, but it's just a matter of everybody doing what they can. If I have any document from any corporate entity that I have to sign or forced to sign, I always sign it with the byline. I autograph it. And I also put UCC 1-308, paid under protest, all rights reserved, UCC 103.6. So you contaminate their contract, and you've got that on their record. So there is recourse in going back in time. But do whatever you can. I don't think there's any significant method, one way or another. It's just a matter of everybody making some kind of an effort. I yield.
Thanks a lot, Dave. Appreciate it very much, very much. Any other comments or questions?
Well, I've been trying to get rid of this smart meter, and I sent in things to the light company because I just want a regular meter. And they sent a contract, an opt-out thing, and I will not sign that either. So I don't know how to proceed after that.
Why don't you want to fill the opt-out contract?
Well, according to freedomtaker.com, they said an opt-out contract is a little bit for you and a lot for them. It more or less protects them.
Okay, well, I'd have to see that contract or give it to Dave. He knows how to take their contracts and take all of their benefit out of it by alteration. You can take their paperwork and alter it
Well,
to say what you wanted to say. You're not required to sign anything that they say you got to say. Say what you want to say.
Right.
Yeah, may I?
Make up, please, Dave.
Yeah, anytime you're going to get a contract from a corporation, it's going to be in their benefit. That's a given. So at a minimum, what you want to do is sign it, but do not sign it. And what you're really doing is putting a disclosure on their paperwork, their contract. It's not your contract, it's their contract. So you're contaminating it, and they have to hold that as their evidence or whatever. And of course, it's always corrupt. It always will be. But you have to make that effort. It's very easy. Do not consent. Simply, you could write that on there. Do not consent to this, or paid under protest, or anything that would contaminate it. So what it really means is there's a defect in that contract, even though, and it wouldn't hold up in court if it had to go to a court. You've already made the effort on their paperwork to contaminate it. I yield.
Thanks, Dave. There's ways around it, yeah. And like you said, it's their contract. You can write your own contract if you want. If you're good at writing, just look at what they're saying, put on there, rewrite it as if, well, this is the contract. You write your contract and send it to them to sign.
Well, but I'm kind of at their mercy, because otherwise I'm not going to have lights.
Yeah, and also, I'm not sure, but I have heard, I haven't dealt with this, but they can also give you huge fees for having someone come out to read your meter, as opposed to it automatically being monitored and recorded.
Well, they sent that on the they sent that on the paperwork too, that I could read the meter, but it had to be done before a certain day, and it really wouldn't be that much more.
Okay, good.
May I? May I?
Yes, Scott.
Regarding the smart meter, SMART is an acronym. I think I get it, at least in the ballpark. It's Surveillance, Management, and Reporting Technology. So this is a spy unit on your house. And you'd be surprised what they can find out about you by monitoring your electrical flow to the various instrumentalities in your house, the refrigerator, the TV, and so on. All right, so there's a way to protect yourself from that. You can put a Faraday protection around the smart meter. And the details of that you can find online somewhere, or somebody could answer that question. But it's basically put a Faraday protection on the back side of it and around it, and that way they can read the meter all they want, but it can't spy on you. I just wanted to mention that possibility. I yield.
Thanks, Scott.
May I?
Please.
Yeah, on any contract that you're signing, if you see things in that contract you don't go along with, you can also just draw a line through that verbiage in that contract and initial it. I've done it many, many times on real estate listings, real estate disclosures, whatever, any type of contract. Now, they may object to that, but you still have that right to cross that portion of the contract out. And that's also another option that you have. Most people probably don't think about that, but just take your ink pen, cross it out, and initial by it. So that means it's not part of the contract. I yield.
May I?
Please, Scott.
It reminds me of I had a pre-sentencing investigation. I had a 90-day period before the judge would sentence me on some traffic violation. So I used that time to communicate with the pre-sentencing investigation court officer. Very independent. So I was basically took the opportunity to educate her about common law and about my status and so on. I wrote her quite an email wherein I outlined 7 or 8 felony level crimes being committed by the court personnel in my procedures. I put them in boldface. And then I had about an hour and a half talk with her, and I took I also had about 8-page document I had to fill out information about myself. I corrupted that document from the first letter to the last. I changed every bit of verbiage I didn't like. I X'd out an entire couple of paragraphs. I said not applicable. N.A. N.A., by the way, when you do N/A, we think not applicable. In Latin, it means actually non-assumpsit, which means no contract. So I did some N.A.s. I canceled out verbiage. I changed verbiage. And she accepted the whole thing. And when I went in to speak to her, it was an hour and a half. I told her that I'm coming here as the living man. I went through that nice talk. I, Scott Erdman of the Family Panko, living flesh and blood, natural of God. I'm addressing you, so-and-so, whatever her name is, I forget, as the living woman and child of God. And I said, and I said that in the beginning, the end, and halfway through. I said, I'm talking to you as the woman. And then she made up the report, put in my email with all these crimes listed that I was accusing the court of committing. And the judge just took it right in stride. And after, finding me guilty of 5 counts, which could have cost me 2 years in jail and $7,000, they charged me $80 court costs and sent me out. So, but here's the thing. They got probably $200,000 to $250,000 on all those counts on the backside, the secret, what they think is secret stuff. So that's why they do it. They were real gentle on me because I'd established myself by then. And they didn't complain about the crimes I accused them of or anything, which was kind of tickled at that I got in their face that much and they didn't do anything. There's ways to deal with it, but I wouldn't go through that 7 months again for anything. I yield.
Thanks, Scott.
May I?
Please, Dave.
Yeah, there's a couple of documents that Anna von Reitz has written concerning the dollar volume on a misdemeanor and a felony charge. They're 1 or 2 pages, or they're fairly short articles. Those are excellent articles just to hand out. Just pass them out to everybody you can, and bring an awareness to people that they have no clue that this has been going on. But if we printed those documents out and just passed them to business people, family, friends, you've got a new education, and these people are going to start asking questions. But anyway, those are excellent documents because that truly gets to the heart of the corruption that most people have no idea of. I yield.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
I've heard many people, though, tell me, well, how come I haven't heard of this? How come you're the only one I know that's heard of this? That's what I always get from family and friends. Or how come you're the only one that knows about this? How come I haven't heard this from anybody else?
Well, ask them, did you watch the news last night and the night before and the night before and the night before? As long as they can keep you focused on giving you nonsense that is meaningless to your life so that you don't have time to, a lot of people watch the 6 o'clock news and the 10 o'clock news and a bunch of garbage television in between. They don't have time to do any study or research. They've got to, watch the game or the sitcom or whatever. And, like Dave was talking about it, the protests going on in Europe. I don't have a television, so I don't know if the mainstream is showing this, but I really would be surprised if they are. They tend not to show the complete collapse of Western civilization, if I can use that term, government, throughout Europe, this country, Canada. They don't want people to realize that the ship, that they're on the Titanic and it's going down. So people, You could ask them, where do you expect to get this information?
They expect to get it on TV.
Well, they're not going to get it there. But explain that to them. Say it's out there. It's very definitely accessible. But if you're so busy watching garbage, you will never have time. Most people are busy with their 40 hours or more a week work, and then, you got to eat and sleep and deal with other, routines, plus, whatever little time you might have to sit in front of a boob tube. That doesn't leave much time for study and research, does it? So, no, you'll never know. You'll go through your whole life just happy as a sheep. Oh. One of the best ways to deal with people who are questioning the validity of what you're saying is don't argue with them. Just ask them a couple specific questions that they can't answer and leave it at that. If they are willing to try to find out the answers to those questions that you ask them, they'll realize they don't know anything. They are so completely misinformed. Like I just say, if they say, well, why don't other people? Well, where do you expect to get that information? Where do you get your information?
I was just going to make a quick comment. Dave has mentioned that there's some of Anna's articles that are really good introductions to try and help educate people who are just starting to figure things out a little bit, and or help to share amongst other people. And I put in the chat, there was 2 articles and one article that has several pages that Dave had suggested to us in the past, and I did put those links in the chat if you have a chance to look at those. I yield.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you very much. Yeah, as an example, I have a brother who thinks I'm absolutely crazy, and he told me one time that he listens to both CNN and Fox, so he gets the whole picture. All television, radio, magazine, newspaper, any source of news for over 90% of what you could get. I'm not talking about the local coupon papers and things, but of actual sources of international news and information are completely owned by 6. I've heard 6 or 7. I believe it's 6 now. I think there was a merger. Corporations who are, yes, competing with each other, but they also have the necessity of keeping the sheeple dumbed down. And, even though they're in competition as corporations, they also have a joint project of making sure that real news never reaches the ground level. So, they filter everything. And, one of the best ways to prove that, and I found it many times in different sources, where they will take one subject and have Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, all of these different supposedly independent news saying the exact same script. And that's how it works. You want a certain news report to go, especially to a local TV news station, you write the script for them and give it to them. They'll use it. They're lazy. If you do their work for them and give them some a headline, and the same with newspapers. You can actually write it for them and give it to them, and I've seen it done, and they will use it just as is. They might edit it a little, but mostly they'll just use it right as is. But say to be so completely snowed to believe that watching CNN and Fox is sufficient to give you a full spectrum of the world's, condition and news and events. It just shows how completely brainwashed he is. And he is. And, we've gotten to a point where we can't even talk. We're good friends. We interact quite a bit. Though he lives in Duluth, I live in St. Cloud. And he's in Mexico now. He spends a lot of time winters in Mexico and Georgian places. So, but when he is around, but we just do not discuss. We absolutely do not discuss. I don't try to wake him up anymore. He just gets too belligerent. It causes too much friction. So, he's going to just sleep. Maybe somebody else can get through to him, but I never will. I know that because I won't even try. I've made that vow that I'm not going to, and I can't help myself when he makes the most stupid, inaccurate statements based on his brainwashed beliefs. I might challenge that belief a little bit, and then I always regret that I did because he's going to defend it, and it's easier to just smile and say, well, you can believe that, and just leave it at that. Because I've never gotten through to him at all. Other people I have. I've had people that really resisted me and thought I was, completely wrong or crazy or whatever. And sometimes as much as 10 years later, been told, I think you're more right than wrong. I have to admit it. But, not everybody's, and they were willing to accept the fact, I've been BS'd and I'm finally willing to admit it. But it took, in that case, about 10 years of very differing political perspectives. So we were great friends. Actually, we played in a band together, so we were very interacted a whole lot. But anyway, so that's you just have to try to not overwhelm them with too much information because they can't take it. A brochure, a little business card with some information on it, some of Anna's, even portions of Anna's. You don't have to. You hand me 3 pages of some topic that I really don't give a crap about, which is the way most people feel about what we're trying to do. They're totally uninterested. You give me 3 pages to read, it probably won't get read. You give me a half a page, it'll almost certainly get read. But make sure that half a page leads me with website addresses and other topics that really catch my eye, that said, gee, I want to look into this. That's how you break the ice. You can give them, a half a sheet with, discussion of, well, the thing is, when people come to the assembly, not all of them, but many, many people, they come with a single issue. Child, what do they call it? Child protection problem. Agency problems or tax issues or various they've been arrested for something and they've got court cases. Give me help me. I want to deal with this one problem. And they don't see the assembly as what we have to be, which is the effort to restore a lawful government. It's so much beyond one issue or two or three little issues. It is absolutely a mega project that has to be accomplished. And we've got to get people to realize that. Yeah, come on in with your problem. We'll do everything we can to help you. That's what we really do want to. But if we're just here to provide temporary, quick fix legal advice or lawful advice, that's not what we're here for. And we don't have the energy to spend resolving people's little issues that's going to distract us from the big project that's at hand, and a very small handful of people at this point doing the work necessary to restore that lawful government. So we'll help everybody. That's why we have committees, and that's we have to develop better ways to communicate and teach each other, more efficient ways. But in the meantime, we have to figure out ways to wake other people up and not chase them away, not overwhelm them, not have them walk away shaking their heads saying they're crazy. That doesn't get you anywhere. We have to give them a little bit of information, and I always love to use websites that, like to Anna's page, it's about fourth page, I think, where it has little short videos that explain the birth certificate process, or other these Jerry Day shorts. They're about 10, 15 minutes long, because you got to keep it short. Initially, with people who couldn't give a crap about what we're doing and don't think they know there's a problem, but they don't think it's fixable. You can't fight City Hall and all that other nonsense. You can't give them reams and books and, here, study all this, and then you'll know why I'm right. They don't give a shit that you're right or not. They want to watch. They want to know the score of the game. So you want to get through to them, spoon feed them, and even over a long period of time, spoon feed them, and give them stuff for them to look up, so that they can dig into it, and give them the right things. That you got to find out what is their interest. Is child support, or is taxes, or is land patent, or is court issues? What is their concern? You can find them lots of stuff that'll they can study that'll give them an alternative way to deal with it and expose them to what we're trying to accomplish here. And that takes us having to learn, so that we even know, what to present to them. But that's the way I believe you get through to people, with fairly simple, short. The shorter, the better. But with enough attention getters in that little short presentation, and a couple websites that'll move them to the places they have to go to say, geez, I've never heard of this. This is amazing. I want to learn more. And then you got them. And it might take a few years for them to get the information they need to make a decision. And even when they do, we have no right to tell them anything about what their decision should be. We can encourage them. We can tell them why we believe that the assembly and restoring our land soil status is the best for us. But for them, that's up to them. But they can't make a informed decision if they don't know. And that's why we got to get them that little spoon-fed bits of information so they can learn what they don't know, but just a little bit of it, which will lead them to finding out that there's even more that I don't know. So with that, I'll yield. Who's got something to say? Question? Comment? Motion to adjourn?
Well, I can make a motion to adjourn. It's not a formal meeting, as you know, but we always do this for fun.
I know. But the only way I can get to do the vote where, it can say, yeah, sure, you betcha. We have to go through the process.
All right. Yeah,
Okay, so
it's been a really good...
Let's not rush. Does anyone else have anything they want to add, ask, say, question? For sure not. Okay, well, thanks so much for coming. We don't need a second because it's not an official meeting. All those in favor, all those who abstain from the vote, say abstain, or aye, I guess. Okay, no abstains. Do we have any nays? No nays. Okay, anybody who wants to adjourn, say, yeah, sure, you betcha.
Yeah, sure, you betcha.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, David.
Night.
Good night,
Thank you.
Good night, Doc.
Good night, Scott. Thanks so much.
You bet.
Thanks
Good night,
so much
Andy.
for coming, everybody.
And everybody, yeah. Lori and Monique. Good night to all. Ha.